It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. It's all but over.
I don't know if I can do the show sober anymore. I really don't.
No?
I really don't know if I can do the show sober.
All right. You need something from...
I'm loading up on caffeine.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have the same effect.
It doesn't get you jumping around like Tim Walz?
All right. Before we even go to some of the audio cuts of the actual convention, I got to play this.
Yeah.
Because this was just one bizarre everything is bizarre world.
Yeah, it is.
And let me play this from Dana Bash.
Okay.
Her commenting on Walz. Okay, here we go. The Harris Walz. And Walz in particular about why he is attractive. Here we go.
Okay.
But they are doing so in trying to put forward male figures, Tim Walz being one of them, Doug Emhoff last night, who can speak to men out there who might not be the sort of testosterone-laden, gun-toting kind of guy who wants to listen to Hulk Hogan and the kind of players that came out at the RNC, or might want to listen to that, but also, in addition, understand that it's okay in 2024 to be a man comfortable in his own skin who supports a woman. And
what the hell does that even mean?
But she was scrambling. I think
she was scrambling. Yeah.
I think she, as soon as she threw Tim Walz under the feminine bus, she was like, "Oh, wait a minute," because Walz is probably, if he was watching that, he's probably going, "Wait, what is she? I'm not masculine. Am I not masculine?"
That's what happens when you start an opinion and you haven't thought it all the way through.
Exactly, and then she's just trying to walk it off the exit ramp. You know?
But the thing about it is, it was the campaign, the Walz-Harris campaign, that when they picked him, the first image that they gave was the fact that he's a hunter, and they had him in camouflage and the rifle and the hat,
flannel,
and
it was full Elmer Fudd.
Right,
they went full Elmer Fudd.
I didn't even realize
there
was a little bit of a
Elmer
resemblance.
Fudd.
But the way he was sitting there with the gun, I never saw that imagery. But when they did it, they just said Republicans and Republican men don't know what to do because they don't know how to handle a Democrat with masculinity. And you and I just went, look, we don't play the identity politics thing. They do.
Right. And we've seen masculine Democrats. Her name is Hillary Clinton.
Right. We don't judge. I don't judge the masculinity of a person. And we said this at the time, whether he hunts or not.
Right.
That
doesn't make you a man.
Wearing camouflage, wearing a hat, carrying a gun does not define a man. Now, it can be part of defining a good man, but that in itself. And that's the stereotype that they were trying to throw out, that Republicans can't handle this masculine, macho Democrat from Minnesota who's a rural guy.
Yeah.
And so he hunts and he has all those traditional values.
Right.
And then I will say this. I believe, do I get credit for the first comparison?
I was telling you in the pre-show meeting, I haven't heard anybody else make the comparison that you did of Tim Walz and
then it appeared,
the now late Richard Simmons.
And then it appeared, and as we said, we weren't insulting the late Richard Simmons, because I think he did a wonderful job in helping a lot of people, especially a lot of women, lose weight, and that's a good thing because it's a good thing for people's health.
He was a great radio guest, by the way. He was just a great guest.
But the first time I saw Walz come out with the hand motions, it's the exact same hand motions.
Right.
And somebody put it on X yesterday, and I went, there it is.
The side by side.
Yes, so I had to post it, and I'm like, wow, okay, good. Because I always wonder, you always wonder, okay, are my comparisons good? Because
are they accurate? Right.
Yeah. And it had, because I didn't put it, actually, I didn't look at a video of Richard Simmons. I just remember Richard Simmons.
Right.
And so when they put that out there, I went, whoa. And then there's Dana Bash saying, because they know that that is all over the internet.
Right.
And just the way that he is, jumping up and down and dancing and twirling and raising his hands, it's like, the Democrats push this incredible masculinity. Is that what you see here? They're stereotypical,
right?
Because they're the ones that said it. We're only responding to Democrats' definition of what masculinity is, and now it's changed 180 degrees.
Exactly.
It's just bizarre. And then she didn't even, like I said, that's where you start a sentence and you haven't thought it all the way through.
And then next thing you know, she's trying to walk the whole thing off the exit ramp.
Oh.
And
but if you want to see the side-by-side comparison, at Gary Red Eye 1.
Yeah.
And
you got to check it out.
Yeah, you have to check it out on X. Gary
In fact,
Red Eye
I'll repost it. I didn't.
Okay.
It was funny. I was too busy laughing. But I'll repost it
because
as well.
And so they realize all of a sudden that became they couldn't sell their stereotypical masculinity hunter.
Yeah.
And we had said, remember, because we do have memories here, we try not to live in the bubble of today.
Right.
We remember when they did it with John Kerry.
Right.
I'm a hunter.
That was so horrible. That was worse than any SNL bit. I mean, it was just horrible.
I'm a hunter.
Still got the Walmart tags on the hat.
I'm a hunter, and I believe in the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
By the way, somebody made that comment the other day. Another comment. They said the problem with John Kerry is the deer don't also have guns. Oh my gosh!
Yeah, Texas is working on getting conceal and carry for deer, but we're not there yet. But it's
where do they conceal it?
I don't know. It was another weird day. Look, so far 3 for 3 in terms of what moved a needle. What actually moved a needle? Night 1, that dumpster fire still is smoldering. Night 2, Barack and Michelle, that was a rally. Night 3 was Bill Clinton, Oprah, and then Tim Walz. By the way, Tim Walz in well under 20 minutes. And,
yeah.
You
don't want, if you're Walz or Harris, you do not want to talk long.
I was going to say, keep it short. I bet he went long. I bet he went longer than they told him. Look, keep it inside 10. But you have to look at it for the ultimate purpose of what a convention is as it's televised or now streamed. And that is to change hearts and minds. As a party, it is a showcase. That's what it is. It's a showcase to the independent, not to your core. And this has been a really weird rally type event that's not working. I told you in the pre-show meeting, it's as if they're workshopping this campaign. They don't know where to go with it. I think you said it last week or week before about Kamala Harris. You have said from the beginning you don't think she is confident in herself in order to sit down, do an interview, or do a press conference. And I agree with that. But you also were making the point, that it is not quite honestly, it's not hard to speak with conviction, right? If you're running for president, if I made the decision to run for president, anybody who does, they should be able to walk up any moment, anytime, and talk with conviction to anybody, answer questions, have a simple debate on the issues. But they don't know what ideas to float. And you've been saying for a while now, it's like as if they're building plausible deniability for Kamala Harris. Oh, my campaign said that. I didn't actually say that. That was the phrasing of my campaign. And that may sound ridiculous to critical thinkers, but tell me what hasn't been ridiculous about this entire thing. Bill Clinton trying to make the point that Joe Biden voluntarily stepped down. They're still trying to sell that on night 3. I expect Joe to say it. Nobody believed when he said it Monday night. But Bill Clinton's still trying to sell it on night 3, and nobody buys that either. You're saying it in the room filled with the people that basically kicked him to the curb, and you want others to believe that he voluntarily stepped down. No, that's not what happened. I don't know what happens on night 4. I mean, and you and I, just before we went on the air, the whole weird thing with Kamala Harris not being there.
Oh, I want to say this because it was the Democrats that came up with it, so we can use it back at them. After the third night, Democrats are weird.
No, it has been really weird.
It's really weird, and this is the other interesting thing that I noticed. And let me play this audio cut here from Walz, because this is the one where I said, all right, they're attempting to do the same gaslighting that Biden did and Karine Jean-Pierre has done that has not worked for them. Listen to this here.
But I think we owe it to the American people to tell them exactly what she'd do as president.
They're doing the complete opposite.
Right. Yeah, when's that going to start?
Right. They're doing the complete and I'm like, wow, that's a Karine Jean-Pierre line.
Right.
And that's to me the fascinating thing about this campaign is they hated Biden.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they wanted Biden out.
Right.
And you know, everything that they've told you about Biden, as we know along the line, has been a complete lie. They've gaslighted to the American public completely. As we have said, a lot of Democrats don't care. A lot of Democrats don't care if their votes don't count. How do we know this? Nobody's complaining.
There's not any outrage.
Right. They don't care if you have a certain elite, all millionaires that got millionaires and rich people that got all their riches through their political careers.
Right.
That there they are all up there. I look at the Obamas, for example, all their money, none of their money, all their money came after he served. It all came from public service.
Right.
And that is supposedly the good way to do it. Trump, they criticize for being a billionaire, for being in the private sector. I mean, it's just, it's mind-boggling. These things, to me, are easy to see through. But everybody knows when he says we owe it to the American people to tell them exactly what Kamala would do as president, that's a Karine Jean-Pierre line that she would use with Biden, and then Biden wouldn't appear and she wouldn't answer any questions.
Right.
I mean, I'm amazed that they have taken that the hatred for Biden was so great, because everything you see about them cheering Biden is all BS. They hated him. They wanted him gone.
Right.
And so what are they doing? They're following the template of what took the Biden administration into the toilet.
Yeah. Because they have no other game. They honestly are lost. The problem is, number one, reality. And really there is nothing else on the list. There is no number 2 on that list. It's reality. It's what people are dealing with every day. Inflation, a broken border, national security in general, lawlessness in the cities, and then the agenda, with children in schools, and it is absolutely you can't get around it. There is no way to just set that aside and ignore it when people are dealing with it every day. Keep in mind, we're at back to school time for a lot of the country. Parents are putting their kids to bed while this is going on, wondering how they're going to make ends meet, school supplies, and everything else that they can't afford while this is going on. And they're asking, what is this? What is this?
We've got a great show ahead. If anybody wants to leave a bottle of vodka outside the studio door, I would welcome that. 866-90-RED-EYE.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Keep your engine humming in the heat this summer by keeping up with preventive maintenance. Think your PM is complete after your oil is changed? Think again. There's grease, transmission fluids, and gear oil to consider too. Clean gear oil, for example, extends gear, bearing, and seal life. It also protects against low-speed, high-torque wear and high-speed scoring. That means not only longer equipment life and reduced maintenance costs, but also improved fuel economy and lower operating costs. So the next time you plan for your oil change purchase, don't neglect lubrication and inspection, especially on components and parts that work hard to keep your vehicle running safe and smooth.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Here's another comment, and he's doing this every single speech. It's where we respect our neighbors. This is Walz. We respect our neighbors and the personal choices they make. Mind your own damn business. Again, this is the guy. This is a state that set up a snitch line to snitch on your neighbors during COVID.
Yeah.
Here he is again.
Because in Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and the personal choices they make. And even if we wouldn't make those same choices for ourselves, we've got a golden rule. Mind your own damn business.
I mean, that's
because in Minnesota,
excuse me, that's exactly word for word.
Yeah.
Not even changed from what he said in Milwaukee the night before. Think about this now, because when you break it down, you say, okay, do Democrats just want to mind their own business? You need to call me the proper pronoun. No, I don't.
No.
Democrats are always trying to control your behavior.
Right.
Who wants limits on the First Amendment?
Democrats.
You can't say that. I think that's hate speech. The Constitution should be against that. They're trying to control your behavior all the time.
Yeah, of course.
We saw it during COVID. We see it every single day when it comes to the First Amendment. They wish to change your behavior if they could on the Second Amendment.
Oh, yeah.
So it's laughable to say that the Democrats say just, we respect our neighbors and personal choices they make. No, you don't.
No, you don't. You absolutely don't. We respect those who agree and comply.
Right. I mean, but it's so obvious, the things that they're saying, and that's why I say they're running a Biden administration marketing effort.
Yeah. No, they really are.
Which is, to me, amazing, because America already knows they turned off to Biden because they knew that administration was pathological liars about everything.
Right.
observing and analyzing the insanity. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara, nightly on Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose if you can't listen live overnight. This story was hardly reported at all yesterday. Maybe it was because no official decision has been made on it. Maybe it was because there was so much focus on the, 819,000 job revision down from March of 2023 to March of 2024, because that was huge news. Everybody was covering that.
Yeah.
In fact, the Commerce Secretary was asked about it, and we'll play that audio cut where she was asked about it and said, what do you think about that? Well, I don't believe it because I don't believe Trump's lies. That's not from Trump. It's from the Labor Department.
Right.
I don't know anything about that. It's like, what do you? Yes, you do.
Exactly.
But I'm telling you, she knows. She knew what it was. They all knew what the revision was going to be. She's a Commerce Secretary, for God's sakes. She knew, because everybody knew the revision for the last 48 hours was coming. Yeah. And there was all the predictions on it. So she knew it. But the plan is, if there's a negative, even if you have to back off, you still make, I don't believe Donald Trump. You make Trump a part of everything, even if he's not a part of it. That's what she was doing. I don't believe anything that Donald Trump says. Donald Trump didn't write it. It was Labor Department. Well, I don't know anything about that. Then you play stupid, but you get your hit in that I don't believe Donald Trump, even though it had nothing to do with him. Mm-hmm. But, the Robert Kennedy Jr. News that, and again, not all media is going with it. But you have many media sources saying, no, he's going to pull out on Friday and he's going to endorse Trump. That was a number of media wrote that. I saw other media saying he's going to give a historic speech. Well, what's a historic speech? He's going to stay in. That's not a historic speech.
Yeah, CNN had it, AP had it,
New York Times had it.
New York Times had it. It's after the whole Bear debacle. It was over. We said it that night when the story came out, but you make a deal on a couple of things. I don't know how much debt the campaign has and exactly how that stuff works, but quite often if there's an endorsement deal, but really the story is he wants some kind of cabinet job, RFK Jr., with the Trump administration. But it will be interesting to see how what's left of his base or supporters, how they react and if they actually go to Trump.
Oh, they were upset about the possibility and said, a lot of them said, this is not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not. Right. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Right. But those were the two stories that really dominated yesterday.
Yeah.
To me, they actually dominated, over the convention.
Yeah.
But then this story came out. Manhattan, from Andrew McCarthy. Mm-hmm. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg has conceded that it would be prudent for the state court to postpone the sentencing of Donald Trump, which is currently scheduled to occur on September 18th. In a letter to Judge Mershon, which was docketed by the court on Monday, though it's dated the prior Friday, Bragg acknowledged that some of the evidence introduced by his prosecutors at last spring's trial was improperly admitted under the Supreme Court's immunity ruling in United States versus Trump. The High Court's decision was issued about a month after the trial, at which the jury found Trump guilty of 34 counts of business records falsification. The majority justices held that the former presidents have presumptive immunity from criminal prosecutions for official acts, including a right to preclude such acts from being used as evidence by prosecutors. As I detailed last Friday, this is Andrew McCarthy now. You've seen him he's a Fox News contributor. You've seen him all over the place. He wrote the book Ball of Collusion of a couple of years ago. He wrote that.
Yeah.
About, going after Trump. But as I detailed last Friday, over the objections of Trump's counsel, Bragg's prosecutors heedlessly offered and Judge Merchan admitted into evidence significant evidence involving Trump's official acts as president. Indeed, prosecutors compelled by subpoena the testimony of 2 Trump White House staffers. At trial, Bragg took the categorical position that there was no presidential immunity and no derivative exclusion of evidence. This, despite the facts that the Supreme Court had ruled differently, and he goes through everything. But the letter from Bragg, an elected progressive Democrat, is not a total retreat. He acknowledged that the court ruling denying presidential immunity is immediately appealable, yet he attempts to distinguish Trump's case, arguing that the issue is not immunity from prosecution, as it was in the Washington federal case, but rather what Bragg minimizes as prosecutors' violation of brand-new evidentiary rule that derives from official acts immunity, which came from the Supreme Court. And when you and I were discussing it, you looked at me and you said, he doesn't want Trump to be a martyr.
I think that's Bragg's play on this is he knows because even though it'd be Merchan doing the sentencing, they were a team, basically, the judge and the prosecutor here, Alvin Bragg, and Alvin Bragg doesn't want to be a part of making Donald Trump a martyr just weeks before the election.
Bragg conveniently omits that the Trump team asked for a delay in the trial so that Merchan could proceed with the benefit of the Supreme Court guidance, which was expected in late June or early July. It came on July 1st. Defense lawyers vigorously also objected on immunity grounds, and in argument to the jury, Bragg's prosecutors described as damaging and utterly devastating. The testimony he now suggests was harmless. As I observed last Friday's column, that Merchan should grant Trump's motion to postpone the September 18th hearing. Not only does Trump have a viable immunity claim that is subject to appeal, regardless of how Merchan rules on it, there is simply no law enforcement rationale for proceeding with the sentence in the stretch run of the presidential campaign. Well, now that you have Bragg there, if Merchan doesn't do it, and I believe the only reason Bragg's doing it, they know this whole case is going to be overturned.
Yeah, right.
The entire case is going to be overturned.
Right.
There's nothing there. You can't do what they did there. You cannot, as everybody agrees, whether you're a Democratic legal scholar like Dershowitz or Turley or whatever. What crime did he commit?
Right.
Nobody knows.
I remember the day when the indictments came down. The liberal media was going, well, we're haven't been able to identify the crime here. They weren't outraged by it, but they were there. Right. It was mind-boggling because you got 34 counts, empty counts, against a former president. And it's, Bragg was on his way to trying to get the Trump campaign derailed, and that's what it was all about. There was no doubt. But the problem with the next move is you get to the point of putting a former president in jail based on 34 baseless counts. And the way that the jury was instructed, do it 4, 4, and 4. I mean, I don't know.
That's what I meant. When I meant that nobody knows what the crime is, I wasn't talking about the beginning of it when the charges came down.
Right.
But the actual guilty verdict, nobody can tell you what the specific crime was,
right? Because
they were given a choice of 3 that they didn't have to be unanimous on. That was so unconstitutional to do something like that. You can't do that.
Well,
and they did that, and that's one of the reasons that no Democrat has argued with us when we say both the judge and the prosecutor are crooked, because you can't do that. You can't lay out, and the judge allowed that to happen. Well, he could have done this, he could have done this, he could have done that. Pick whichever one you choose. There doesn't need to be a unanimous verdict on either, as long as you can have 4 say he was guilty of this, 4 say he was guilty of that, and 4 say he was guilty of that, and that gets you in. And so we don't know what he was prosecuted on. We don't know what specific crime that he was prosecuted on after the guilty verdict. That is such reversible error. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
Well, Dershowitz was there And he was like, I've never, ever seen anything like this in a courtroom, ever.
Yeah.
And that was my point of going back from the very beginning. Nobody could make sense of this. And then you get to all the way through to the end. It was inevitable that nothing was going to turn into a nothing conviction, because it's almost like the Russian hoax thing and the Mueller investigation. It was empty to begin with, and when Mueller was testifying and fumbled horribly, it was a Hindenburg of a testimony on that day, and it was bound to end that way. Of course, it was inevitable it would end that way, and that's what you have here. When it's empty, nothing's going to come of it. They have to make it up as they go along. I would really love to be a fly on the wall with Alvin Bragg.
Bragg's letter gives Merchan a roadmap to retreat from his avowed determination to sentence Trump on September 18th. I expect the judge will follow the DA's lead, as Merchan has throughout the proceedings. And it was funny because when we were talking about it, you just said, you're not doing it because we all know the case is going to be overturned,
right,
even if you didn't have the Supreme Court ruling.
Right.
The case was going to be overturned on reversible error because you can't do what they did there. There are so many things, so much as Dershowitz and Jonathan Turley, who are Democrats, not Trump supporters, have said over and over and over again. And I'm thinking that they didn't expect, because this defies history, that if you just sit there and say, well, a president was convicted of 34 felonies, how could his support not crater?
Right.
Because the American public looked at it and said, this is bogus. And the polls show it.
Oh, yeah.
The polls show them. The majority of Americans believe that it was political, that they prosecuted him, for that. So he became a martyr.
Right.
And a month and a half after that was done, he had such a huge lead on Biden that Biden was forced out.
Right.
I tell you, he wasn't forced out. By the way, let me talk about, I want to talk about Trump and misogyny.
Yeah. He hates women, and I love women. I love women. I just love women.
But I agree with you on that. I think they don't wish to make Trump a martyr. Think about this.
Yeah.
That from Bragg was an acknowledgement that everything he did was wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Everything
Look,
he did
if he
was
believed that Trump did something wrong, you would never go this route. And look,
well, I meant politically, not legally. Politically, he realizes what he did was wrong. That's why he's, and I know legally he knew he was legally he's not stupid. He knew he was wrong from the beginning. But the whole point was just to get a conviction. They didn't care if it got overturned. Just get the conviction, because if you get the conviction of a felony, no president can survive, or excuse me, no candidate, ex-president, could survive that and possibly win an election.
Right.
The political calculation was completely wrong from Bragg, and that was his admission earlier this week.
And he learned that after the conviction.
Yes.
Because the Democratic Party, I'm with you on that, but he thought he was going to be a hero. He's standing around going, hey, I'm a hero. Well, for the first few hours after the conviction came down, he was. And then it started to fall apart because they realized they had built a martyr. And then they went back and forth on whether or not they could even call him a convicted felon, and decided to quit using those words. I mean, you still hear it, but they couldn't jump on that, because the more they did, the more they built a martyr. It backfired big time, and Alvin Bragg is anything but a hero, even with his own party.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
By Friday, could Trump be leading the Unity Party? We'll have details on that coming up. The great unifier, the head of the Unity Party.
We told you. We told you. You know, Kamaga didn't really take off.
Oh, my gosh.
I've got 10,000 T-shirts in a box in a warehouse somewhere. But it is interesting that that came up. And we'll see if Trump runs with it. I'm the great unifier. I'm bringing people together. And then, you know, bring RFK Jr. on stage at a rally. Yeah, we'll see, I guess.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Oh, man. What? I lost my place. I had everything. I was trying to find Bill Clinton mispronounced Kamala Harris's name last night.
Uh-huh.
And I'm trying to find, I just thought about it as the music started playing, and I'll get to the audio cut in just a second, but I cut it off with the window trying to search. There was a Republican that mispronounced her name a couple of weeks ago, or in the last week, I believe it was, who was called a racist because they mispronounced her name.
Yeah, right.
So is Bill Clinton a racist?
No, only Republicans who mispronounce her name. I thought the rule book was very clear.
Oh. Thank you for setting me straight.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know. Well, look. Let's remember, Bill Clinton was the first black president.
Oh, that's true.
Remember that?
That's right. Everybody forgot about that.
For those under the age of what, 40? Honestly, when's the last time? Where did that cut off? Where did that end? That you might be aware that the Democrats called him that. What age would you be now? The last people to have heard that from the Democrats, that Bill Clinton was the first black president.
Wow. 15 years? Maybe 15 years?
I was going to say longer, but
okay.
Because I was going to say pre-Obama. Right? So, I was going to say, election season 2008. They probably stopped saying it then.
Oh, okay.
Now,
yeah.
not that, but I guess that wasn't my question.
I remember
they would still say it,
right? But I remember you and I during the campaign saying, "Well, wait a minute," because we asked the question.
Yeah.
The people say that that Barack Obama will be the first black president. Well, what about Clinton?
Right.
And now you think about it now with the transracial movement created by Obama.
Right.
Remember, Obama's the first one that suggested that race is a social construct.
Yeah.
You know how many times we brought that up and received zero response? Have you ever gotten a response from anybody who is like furious at you for saying that?
No.
I've never gotten any Democrat to respond to that. And man, we've been talking about that since the end of
It would have been the summer of 2016 when he said it?
No, it was December of 2016. It was when he was leaving office.
Yeah.
And it was one of his last interviews that he did. And
I thought he moved out of the White House in the summer of 2016. He was eager to go.
He said he's come to the realization that race is a social construct.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, my God. Could you imagine if a Republican said that?
Oh, man. No.
Irrespective of their skin color?
Right.
Could you imagine if Republicans said race is a social construct? You are what you think you are.
Because when people were saying, remember a few years ago, liberals started going crazy over anybody who said, I don't see color. When people say, I don't see color, the sentiment was the color of your skin does not have an impact on my judgment of you.
Right.
And liberals were like, because it went full circle, basically, or 180, I guess, they were like, well, no, you must, because they understood that. And they would say it back in the day. But then they understood, well, no, now where we are today, you must judge everybody by skin color, and you can't say I don't see color.
Well, that's part of identity politics. Yeah,
right, exactly.
You couldn't say you don't see color because, of course, you see color. And if you don't see color and then apply the correct stereotype to anybody with that color skin across the board, or if you deviate from what they say should be the narrative of people with that particular skin tone, well, then you're a racist.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, it's really an interesting concept.
Yeah.
But let's go to some more of the audio cuts here. Here's Clinton. All right. Listen to this one. All right. Here we go.
All right.
Take it from a man who once had the honor to be called in this convention the man from hope. We need Kamala Harris, the president of joy, to lead us.
Because you can't say it that way, because somebody on the right, I forget who it was too, was saying it, and it's like you're saying Kamala. You can't say Kamala. Yeah, you can. I just did.
A couple of weeks ago, if you referred to her as not Kamala Harris, but just Kamala, that was racist.
Right.
And then the campaign came out, and the campaign is using all the time Kamala.
Right.
I mean, it's just
exactly.
We don't know. We don't know what the rules
everything.
are.
They're workshopping everything.
This is the one thing that we have said in the convention seems to be the same thing. This is almost as if you're just starting your primary run, and you're trying to figure out where to go.
You're in exploratory committee mode.
Yeah. And you use that term. You said exploratory committee, and I think that's perfect.
It was a couple of weeks ago, and I forget what the story was, but it basically, I mean, it was overall the story was the campaign, but they are still in exploratory committee mode. This is where you would be for a 2024 election. This is where you would be. It's somewhere in early 22. You know, you would be in explore. You'd float things. And you wouldn't have really a real identity. You wouldn't know what the campaign was. It's very clear they don't. The party doesn't know what this is. Think about this. We are 75%. I'm not good with math. Alan can check me on that. 75% through a Democratic National Convention of 24. And the Democrats, the party, has not really been able to shape and position itself at all. During the week of the showcase.
Nancy Mace.
Nancy Mace, okay.
Yeah.
And during the week, you know, of a party's showcase, their convention, this is what it's all about. You got to showcase it for people who haven't decided yet or change hearts and minds, that kind of thing. What are they about? Tim Walz He's masculine. He's a Midwestern. He wears flannel. Well, he's not masculine, Dana Bash. He's not, he doesn't have to be masculine. Sorry. What are you saying? She just wants to scream. Dana Bash just wants to scream. He looks like Richard Simmons when he comes out. But those are the things that really boggle my mind. Think about this. Okay. Joe writes the letter, or whoever wrote the letter for Joe Biden, announcing he's no longer going to be the nominee, endorses Kamala Harris in that letter, which was, I believe, part of the game, and him telling, okay, if I step down, I'm endorsing her, and you will have to do it. You'll have to get in line and endorse her, too. Remember, the Obamas were not on board day one with an endorsement.
They weren't on day 2 or day 3.
It
took
was
like 4
later
or 5
in the,
days,
it,
right?
It was later in the week. I think their butler George Clooney came out first and endorsed her. But the whole idea of that week, and I said it, we talked about it that week. If they want to get this together, this has not been a party that was unified. The Republicans are unified. This is not a party that's unified. The Democrats are not unified. And if you're going to make this thing happen, this little charade you're trying to pull off, everybody's going to have to show up. Everybody has to be there. Everybody has to endorse her. You got to make it look real, and everybody's going to be on board. Now, think of all of the political minds, people who were in charge of campaigns for the Democrats over the last, well, now with Bill Clinton, go back all the way to 92. And still, they can't shape a campaign. Still, they look like, not just as a campaign, but as a party, they're in exploratory committee mode, and they're almost done with their convention.
Well, one of the reasons is, again, they won't take questions. Mm-hmm. You really can't form a policy unless, you can have the DNC policy from the Biden administration, because that's what you have. You've got her with a couple of things that's come out from the campaign, but it hasn't come out of her mouth where she stands. And I will find the audio cut here, and that's why, for example, you've got the Kamala Harris, the president of Joy. I mean, that's really, I did see some interviews, and it was an interview being done with blacks. And they said this whole Joy thing, we're not happy. I don't know why they're continuing to say we're joyful. She's part of this administration. Why do they keep saying she's the candidate of joy?
Right.
We don't feel joy.
Right.
It doesn't seem like she's serious. She's laughing. He's jumping up and down. These are serious times here. And that along with the fact that they're following the template of the Biden administration, that's what really fries my mind. Let us hide our candidates. Let us be very confusing about where we stand. Now, we know where we stand and we know what we want to do, and it's extremely far left, but let's just throw everything out there. The other thing that I thought you just said, this is a divided Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. It's divided. Yep. It's divided between, and I can't tell you what the percentage is, but it's divided between the terrorist supporters of Hamas, the Jew haters, which include Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
Yeah.
Based on the fact that we want a two-state solution. You say that, you're an anti-Semite.
Right.
Because they'll say, well, there's more than two ways to look at it. No, there isn't.
Nope.
Not in this case. It's like 9/11. There wasn't two ways to look at it. Sorry. And they continue, to throw that. So you've got a split there. And then you've got a huge split politically inside there. Not only, you think about Marianne Williamson saying, she was interviewed yesterday, I got 500,000 votes. She's got none.
Right.
I wasn't invited
Right. Couldn't get a ticket
to the DNC unless I, without question, endorsed her.
Right.
Now, I understand that because you don't want people that are going to get on the media on the floor and go, no, we don't want her.
Well,
but it does make a point because she got 500,000 votes, and the nominee for the Democrats has run 2 campaigns and gotten 0 votes from any Democrat. And so that people understand that, and that's starting to grow. Have you noticed that over like the last week?
No, it is. Yeah.
It's starting to grow and grow and grow, the dissension. Everybody knows that when the Obamas are out there, talking about how great Kamala is, they don't want her there.
It's when you heard the Obamas talking, just take the script and put anybody else's name in there. They didn't endorse her from the get-go. They were forced to. Kamala Harris isn't sitting in the audience. She's not there. She's not at the convention.
Thank you. You're going to the point that I was going to, which you brought up earlier. And then they accentuated that point by having the phone call with her from the hotel.
That was weird.
And so we know that they weren't there for the Obamas. Everybody knows because it's like a little soap opera. And the public loves soap operas.
Right.
Everybody actually isn't together. And so on a night where you would think she would be there, which the imagery with Trump there every night smiling and,
his family is there.
His family's, everybody's
the
there. It's
party is there.
It's like you're a part of it.
Right.
And she's not going to appear until she speaks. Even when Walz is there, she's not there. Why wouldn't you be there? What would be the reason for not being there?
It's bizarre.
I know.
I think that's really making it exponentially worse. People looking at this going, where is she? Trump was sitting right there when they were talking about everybody, obviously on the stage is going to get up there and endorse Trump. Here's why you should. And then they would pan over to Trump. He's there with his family. He's there. He's right there. And you have this thing that's orchestrated it's almost like the Corleones. It's telling Fredo, don't be in the same building if you know I'm coming.
I always go back to the movie Miracle.
Mm-hmm.
And the United States and the movie, not and where Kurt Russell, there's a minute left, and it's when the Russians, you always pull your goalie, and the Russians haven't pulled the goalie, and they go, get ready to pull, and he goes, my gosh, he's not pulling the goalie, and Kurt Russell looks and goes, he doesn't know what to do. They've never been in this position.
Right.
They don't know what to do, and that's what I get right now out of the Democrats. They've never been in this position where reality has now hit up against their liberal ideas. They don't know. They're split like crazy. They don't know where to go.
Right.
So they decided to follow the Biden administration template of gaslighting.
Yeah,
that didn't work for them.
Nope.
866-90-RED-I.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Owner-operators can save a hefty amount of money by participating in discount fuel networks. If you're leased and your fleet has a fuel optimizer program, use it. Such a program helps plan a trip based on fuel prices and locations in the carrier's fuel network. The larger the carrier, typically the larger the discounts that are possible. Fees for using such networks have become rare thanks to competition for drivers. Owner-operators are well advised, however, to pass up network fuel stops that are too costly, are too far off route, sell inferior fuel, or are dangerously or poorly maintained. For independent owner-operators, a bevy of fuel discount networks exists, from a variety of traditional fuel cards to the National Association of Small Trucking Companies network and the younger mudflap applications discounts at independent truck stops around the nation. Research the options and discounts available to find the right one for you. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I pronounced my name wrong. Gary McNamara. McNamara. Jeez.
McNamara.
Well, I was thinking, though, when the whole thing of Nancy Mace a couple of weeks ago, and then you got Clinton yesterday not pronouncing her name right.
Kamala.
It's amazing the number of people that, when they see McNamara, I have no idea.
McNamara.
I get McNamara most of it. McNamara. It's like, okay, apparently it's not as well a known name as I thought it was.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen where and when you choose. All right, Scott Jennings on CNN last night. This is getting to be some of the most fun things to watch, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Is Scott Jennings on CNN.
Yeah. No, I think he's so good at really going straight to the point. And you pointed out earlier this week or last week, they're really not able to challenge him on the panel on CNN. No one's really coming back at him.
Well, you did. Anderson Cooper did last night.
Did he?
But it was I'm going to play this here. Let me first play this cut because Anderson Cooper responded afterwards to this. But here's Scott Jennings.
Tonight said anything. Nobody tonight said a damn thing. They want you to vote for a ticket based on absolutely no concrete idea about what they would do once they get in office. You said he got more progressive when he got elected governor. So you're saying every time he gets another office, he gets more and more progressive. I think that's exactly what would happen. Tonight you did hear people say, well, we may not agree with him on everything, but at least it'll be joyful as they tax us into oblivion. I think the idea that you could run an entire presidential campaign based on the idea of vote for me to find out what's in it.
Wait a minute, Scott.
Terrify every American.
Scott.
Okay, now when he was going Scott, he said Trump has done the same thing. Now, I don't think Jennings hit him back hard enough. I'll see if I can find that audio.
Okay.
I don't have that in this particular cut. But the fact is, Trump was elected based on issues.
Yeah.
That's the only reason Trump was elected on the issues. Trump didn't say in 2015 when he decided to run that
I'll tell you what I believe later.
Right. I'm going to be the candidate of joy.
Right. Yeah.
He didn't sit there and say, I'm not going to do any interviews. Guess what I stand for?
And then just put the word hope out there repeatedly.
Right. In fact, he was very, very specific when he was running.
Well,
and
we said it. In fact, you were the first that I heard identify this in 2016, or you said it, and that Trump, all he had to do is acknowledge that was one of the connections that he made in a big way. He acknowledged the problems. And I said he owned the border. We both talked about in 2016, there were so many stories about the broken border that's even worse. Now, you knew where Trump stood on the issues. And also, you could go back decades to talk shows, television talk shows, and you knew what Trump believed. You have no idea what Kamala Harris wants to do. She hasn't spoken.
Well, we do, but it hasn't been said.
We know what she wants to do.
Right.
But if you're trying to convince people to vote for you, tell us what she wants to do.
When Trump ran, what did he run on? Now, what I said was all he had to do was acknowledge the problem, which immediately people said, well, at least somebody in politics is acknowledging what the problem is. And this was after, remember, you and I always talked about this during the Obama administration, and we say this because we don't live in the bubble of today.
Right.
Well, yesterday I did because there was so much bubble. But but we don't live in the bubble of today. We remember, we go back and go, well, wait a minute, this is what they were saying back then. Remember during the Obama administration, everything was race and climate change. Everything was race and climate change because that actually became an issue.
Right.
It became an issue that, what do you mean? Everything is race and climate change. All right, let's look at the 30 things that people care about.
Right.
Where's race and climate? At the bottom.
At the bottom.
29 and 30. Yep. Or if you did 25, it would be 24 or 25. And you and I actually said that the Obama, the entire Obama administration was about talking about stuff that was not of concern to people because they couldn't talk about what they actually wanted to do. So they talked about race and climate change. And it was almost as if they thought, well, okay, let's talk about things that people don't care about, but really be concerned about what people don't care about. And therefore, we're not going to lose any voters because we're not talking about what people actually care about. I mean, that's how bizarre it got. And so when Trump came in and Trump said, the border, we need to solve it now. The economy, we need to solve it now. Trade, we need to solve it now. I'm going to, redo NAFTA. Now, did he do everything that he said he was going to do? No, he evolved on certain things. Has he de-evolved on certain things with trade and the economy? We'll find out. But the fact is, the border, you knew exactly what he wanted to do. He talked about a wall. He talked about following federal law. I mean, it's not hard to figure out we're going to close the border. Well, you need to give specifics. Okay, wall. Yeah. Number 2, we follow federal law. If you come in, you're deported back.
Right.
Well, you're not being specific. Yeah, he is. And so Anderson Cooper was trying to make the case that Trump has never explained what he wants to do as president. Trump only got elected because he told the American public what he wanted to do, what he viewed as the problems, and how he was going to solve them.
Yep.
Now, some of those we criticize, but that's not the point. I mean, some of the stuff was absurd, as we talked about, and he doesn't talk about those things anymore. Remember when he said we'll just pay off the debt, pennies on a dollar?
Yeah, we'll negotiate what we're going to pay. Yeah.
Because you do that in business, we'll do that. It's like, oh, man. He was new to politics back then and still new to economics.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you can't do that. Shut up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he now knows he's much better at campaigning. Vance was great yesterday. Vance was great across the board yesterday.
Yeah, I think so.
Some of my buddies that I'm in a group text with, said that, and I went, well, you know me, because they were talking about how good Vance was yesterday.
Right.
And I said, well, you know me, how I nitpick and how I've criticized, and they know.
Right.
The Republican Party and Trump in the past for complete lack of understanding how to communicate with the voter. And they have at times been horrible at it, not just Trump, but the Republican Party in general. In fact, still, I'm amazed the Republican Party didn't pound on the Obamas, specifically on identity politics.
Right.
It's something that you don't argue the same way as they do, but you can win that day in and day out because they're so blunt in their racism. I don't understand why the Republican Party, outside of an election, well, they're not doing it in an election cycle, but outside of an election cycle, why the Republican Party doesn't sit down and say, look, it's obvious by what they do, by judging people by groups and not individuals, that identity politics is all about racism.
Mm-hmm.
Critical race theory is all about racism. Let's tie it all together and let's be aggressive. We don't need to ever be on the defensive. This is the thing that gets me. You never, ever have to be on the defensive about race if you're a Republican or a conservative.
Right.
Because you judge people by individuals. And all you have to say is what we've said for years. We don't judge people by groups. We judge them as individuals. You win. It's not a complicated argument or debate point.
Nope. No.
And so, but they are, they're doing very good, and they're talking about, again, the problems that they see. I saw, it was Mark Cuban implying the other day that, Trump wants the government the Democrats say the government can solve inflation. Trump's saying the same thing. No, he's not, because Trump said that I want every cabinet member to do whatever. No, what Trump wants to do is have the government get out of the way and the government not be involved as much in order to lower inflation. We know that.
Yeah.
By fewer insane regulations, by, as he has stated before, making it easier for them to do business. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was a horrible weak point by Cuban. Cuban is like a drowning man reaching for anything to support the Democrats right now.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
Well, it's interesting because, honestly, all of their surrogates on the peripheral have to do that. They basically have to go out of their way and kind of build their own facade because they don't know what's going on with their party. They really don't. And they make these feeble attempts at trying to defend. And they get crushed every time. We are at a point. I didn't know if we'd see it. And I don't know how it will affect. I don't know what the election what will happen. We don't make predictions. But we are at a point where the abstract, at least for now, is gone. Reality right now is the Democrats' biggest problem. In 2008, you could use a word like hope and change and use it politically because it was an abstract thing. Hey, if we just do this, if we just do that, if we just do that. Now it's about fixing something that is a number of somethings that are broken, and people are screaming for that help. The American people definitely want change, but the Democrats want you to believe it's almost like they're trying to position Donald Trump as the current president and that you're currently in this position because of his administration, and nothing could be further from the truth. This is about the Biden-Harris administration and the Democratic Party and their entire agenda, which has been implemented to the point it's crushing this country. Inflation, the economy, the border, and now they proudly promote their anti-Semitism and pro-terrorism. It is reality. You don't even have to look for it. This is the thing, too. If you want to watch the DNC this week, like with anything, you got to go out of your way basically to find it. You got to kind of look for it. With the reality, you're being bombarded with it every single day. It's being delivered to you every single day. And you can't avoid it. You can't. There is no way around it. It's with you always. And Democrats can't change that.
And they seem not to want to even discuss reality because, again, she's the one, it's her administration. It's the Biden-Harris administration.
Right.
And the fact is they can't talk about any of it. And I look, you and I were, Chris Cuomo, we were watching him on News Nation, where he was talking about the fact that basically it's a pep rally for both of them, for both of the campaigns. And, once these people go out, these are the surrogates who will go out. You need them energized. That's part of it. But you energize them by talking about the issues that will win you an election.
Right.
The actual issues that will win you an election. The Republicans did that. The Democrats are just generalizing and telling stories and putting the establishment up there and just not talking about how they're going to solve any of the problems and trying to make it seem as they're trying to convince the ignorant that Trump is in power right now,
right.
that everything is Trump's fault, yet they're the ones that have the executive branch power.
Right.
And everybody knows it, and
Yeah.
it's a disaster.
Right.
And every argument they make, we'll get to some of the arguments which are just, I have no idea why Walz, is pounding on the fact that J.D. Vance came from nothing and went to Yale as a negative. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense at all.
It's like you pick something else. But it's like, so you're criticizing somebody who came from nothing and went to Yale?
Right.
As a bad thing?
Right.
I mean, it's just, but none of it makes sense. That's why I said, somebody leave a bottle of vodka outside. Maybe if I drink the whole bottle, I can understand what the hell's going on. But they're not even making any sense.
Exactly.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up following the top of the hour, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his campaign. All the media, so many media reports yesterday saying he is going to drop out and endorse, and they're even calling it a unity ticket. We'll have some. Dennis Kucinich was talking about how the Democratic Party did everything possible to keep Robert Kennedy Jr. from running. I mean, this is, you're talking about liberal Democrats, traditionally liberal Democrats, that are furious at what the Democrats have done.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Hi. Hello. All right. I thought this was interesting just to give people perspective of the polls, because I was looking at the Rasmussen polling, and I think people should know this. They do a daily poll, but you see a lot of polls. I saw one poll that was like from July 28th to August 13th. I'm like, okay, wow, a lot of things happen in that time.
Yeah.
And they just give you, the generalized poll, or it's a poll over a week or poll over 3 days.
Right.
Understand that in those days, there are wide disparities. Look at Rasmussen, for example. I'm going to start on August 7th, okay?
All right.
On August 7th, now Trump was up by 10. On August 8th, Trump up by 4. On August 11th, Trump up by 3. On August 12th, Trump up by 4. On August 13th, Trump up by 4. August 14th, Trump up by 2. August 15th, Trump up by 2. August 18th, Trump up by 2. August 19th, Trump up by 10. August 20th, tie, Trump up by 0. But if you take that across the board and you average it out, Trump's up 4.1 points.
Okay.
And so you can take a one-day poll where it's tied, but you got to take the average of the days. And Rasmussen was asked, well, why the wide difference? He says mostly because of the sample size combined with extremely strong feelings right now because of the convention. And again, I think he's guessing, like most would guess, on it. But when he talks about the small sample size, roughly, we know this from radio. like a good sample size of the entire country is probably, 1,500 people is viewed as a good sample size?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you see, for example, on August 20th, 389 people, their opinions were counted. August 19th, 378. August 18th, 409. August 15th, 373. So they may tell you, okay, we have interviewed 1,500 people, but every single day it might only be 400 or 300 something that are interviewed in that particular day.
Right.
So the sample size is small for each day, but not for the entire poll, which then you're averaging all the days in.
Right.
But therefore you can see the wide disparities, which is why we say we don't look at the polls and never have as an absolute indicator.
We look at movement.
We look at movement and where it moves. Now, again, right now, I don't have faith in anything. Rasmussen.
I don't trust anything right now.
Right. Rasmussen accusing. We've seen what has happened in our society.
Yeah.
We saw the Russia collusion hoax that the Hillary campaign and the Democrats did against Trump.
Yep.
Which took this country through hell for 3 years, and it was all a lie produced by Hillary and the Democratic National Committee that gave the money, that created the fake dossier where they were able to get a secret warrant on the Trump campaign, all created by the Hillary campaign. All created.
Yeah.
None of it.
Yeah.
There was no Russia collusion. Trump, all those stories about Trump, completely false. Back then, what was my point? I forgot what my point was.
How the polls moved?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I related the polls to that, though.
Well, when, you and I have broken down the civics poll, which is a daily poll, and you look at, which is a presidential.
That's approval rating poll.
Approval rating poll.
Right. Which is useless for Biden.
Right. And exactly. But you look at you can go back and look at certain events and certain movement of the rating, in that case, for the president or any president. Now, we also don't trust civics because I believe they are running a
yeah.
I think they turn it off
okay.
when it's negative for Democrats.
That was my point.
Yeah.
After the Russia collusion, after everything that we have seen with the impeachments. Mm-hmm. By the way, you notice the Republican report on why Biden should be impeached. Mm. The impeachable offenses, no one from the Democrats have defended Biden. Not one person.
Well, you and I joked the other night, my gosh, by Thursday night, they might be, she might be sworn in as president. If the Democrats want to really separate Kamala Harris from Joe, oh, no, we think the GOP actually is on to something with this impeachment thing.
But that was
you're
right.
That
was my point of not trusting. I don't trust anything anymore with the 51 intelligence agencies, with the censoring of Twitter. I believe everything has the potential, and that's what Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen is saying, that no, the other polls are that the vast majority of the polls out there are bogus or oversampling Democrats or whatever else they do in there. He claims that it, and I believe now with what I have seen, that's a possibility. The problem is when you're involved in a cultural or a actual conspiracy. You and I have talked about conspiracies and also the cultural conspiracy where, oh, no, we just all know that we don't follow the law. We just don't do it. Right. When you've seen the rot and stink in the Department of Justice and the FBI, I don't trust anything anymore at all.
No, I don't trust anything. I don't trust the method when it comes to pollsters. I don't trust where the methodology is right now, and because we have to include that possibility. That all right, let's reshape it. Look, if you're going to, they kicked Biden to the curb. Nobody on the left was asking for Kamala Harris. Then all of a sudden, it's the second coming, and she's the greatest thing. And so, if that can happen, liberal pollsters might be motivated to make it look better than it actually is. That wouldn't, by the way, that wouldn't be new in and of itself. But now more than ever, especially in this election cycle, I've got even less trust than I had before. We look at it, we look at the movement in polls. So basically, within the same pollster, each pollster's movement is what's relevant, I believe. Mm-hmm. So, because they all have their own methodology, and then you look at the movement within whatever the pollster is. And then you get down to, all right, we've done this for years now. After the election, all right, who was closer? It's a very interesting take, and also, I think, important, because if those pollsters are going to be, doing involved in elections and doing those polls, then people should know where their methodology is and if it was on point, if it was accurate.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting because he does a day-to-day. You can see that there is a possibility of wide swings day-to-day in a particular poll.
Sure.
Using the same standard as they do, you can still have in a poll, just because of, when you're doing it, when it's random calls, sometimes the random can work against your accuracy for that day, which is why you take it over multiple days.
Exactly.
And then you view it, okay, where's it going? Where's it going?
It's a broader sample. Yeah.
And then you look, and where is the movement? Where is the movement headed? But I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah.
As everybody's going to be poll crazy, and look, Harris could get a bump from saying nothing, from just the party of joy, the party of joy. That may get a bump for a couple of days. I don't think it will last, because you have too many questions here. And you have, I think, one thing at the end of this week, especially being talked about now, the whole Kennedy thing, to me is pretty mind-boggling when you think about it. Not just that, Kennedy, what the stories say, will, drop out and endorse Trump, but the actual, I want to play here some of the things that were actually said here. This is Nicole Shanahan, RFK Jr.'s running mate, because it's just the language they're using. Understand, these are all Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
And she and herself is a pretty liberal Democrat with a liberal record.
Yeah.
And listen to what she says, because is this hidden inside the Democratic Party? Because we know the whole United thing is false. We know that, which is why we were blown away at why Harris was not at the convention to watch Walz, because already behind the scenes in the media talking about it, she wasn't there because of the hatred between Biden's and the Obamas.
Right, and she's connected directly to
Biden. Right. She's out there trying, initially, she isn't much anymore, but initially she was trying to separate herself from Biden, as Biden was saying, no, we stand together, we stand together, we stand together, we stand together. We agreed on everything. And it's like, okay, get him that speech on Monday and then get him the hell out of town to never be heard from again.
Right.
But the question is going to be asked to Karine Jean-Pierre if she attempts to separate from him. But the fact is, she's not. On the proposals that they've now come out with, it's the exact same liberal agenda that it's always been.
Yeah.
But I want to play here. This is RFK Jr.'s running mate, Nicole Shanahan, on Fox News yesterday.
You made some big news today, talking about the Kennedy-Shanahan ticket. Does it stay in the race, Nicole? What are your thoughts on that?
It's Bobby's decision. I came into this supporting him wholeheartedly to win this election. And I have to say, there's only one party that has obstructed a fair election for us. And unfortunately, it was the Democratic Party. They've done everything they can, including creating PACs to prevent us from being able to have ballot access.
Yeah, it's interesting because you were saying that you could stay in and run the risk of Kamala Harris win, or you could walk and you could join forces with Donald Trump. When you say join forces, Nicole, what do you mean specifically?
Well, this idea of a unity party, an idea of us coming around these principles of fighting for liberty in this country, fighting for our children's health. We have the worst chronic health crisis in the world right now. Over 50% of children are diagnosed with some chronic disease. This is unconscionable. Yeah. And we are willing to work with anyone who is sincere in their endeavor to fix and address this issue.
Do you believe the Trump campaign and Trump himself is sincere? Do you see a home? You talk about this as being Bobby's decision. Do you see a home for RFK Jr. in the Trump administration, Health and Human Services, something to that extent?
I would fully support it. I would fully support a strong partnership dedicated to this issue. A lot of people comment that in his first term he didn't accomplish many of the things that mothers really were hoping he would do. Made some big mistakes around the pandemic. However, I think that he is sincere. Yeah, I do.
I think it's interesting because the National Review today kind of agrees with you. It's saying that if you, in fact, join the Trump campaign, I'm not saying the Trump campaign, if you pulled out of the race, that it would be more beneficial to the Trump campaign than the Harris campaign. Is that a fair assessment?
I think that it's a tight race right now. Yeah. I wish that we had a chance to debate, that we had fair representation in the polls. I wish we had a chance to be on stage, because had we likely would have won this election. Yeah. 71% of Americans want a strong third-party option, and we delivered it in terms of ballot access. Yeah. But they're suing us. The DNC-aligned PACs are suing us to get us off the ballots right now. These are frivolous lawsuits. We've had some of the best people involved in our ballot petitions, some of the most precise, signature packages ever submitted to any of the Secretary of States. We've overcome so much to get to this point. So to even be contemplating this is tough. It's a really hard decision, and we don't come to this moment lightly. We come to this moment because in every single decision we make, first and foremost, we want to make sure that we are representing the best interest of health and wellness of young people, children, and future generations.
There you go. The unity party with Trump. And coming up, we'll get to Dennis Kucinich saying the same thing. It's like the people that are stopping this, and that can help move it a little bit, because it's not Trump saying it.
That's it. Yeah, that's a great point. This isn't Trump coming out claiming I'm the great unifier, I'm the great, with nothing really substantial, to back it up. He's got, this would be like a pre-surrogate type move.
And her saying Trump is sincere.
That right there was the moment in what she was saying. Yep. Look, we believe he made mistakes, but I believe he was sincere.
She's a liberal Democrat.
She's a liberal Democrat.
Whoa. 866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I'll wait till after the bottom of the hour, because may have a time problem. I want to place the interview with Dennis Kucinich, who said no question about it, RFK Jr. could swing the election to Trump, and the DNC did everything they could to block Kennedy from running as a Democrat.
Yep.
And so this is something that you really can't ignore. Look, at the Democratic convention last night, I wasn't there, but I can tell you there was only one thing that everybody was talking about. What was the number one thing on every Democrat delegate that was there last night? Was it Oprah did a great speech? Nope.
No.
Was it, that Walz? Thank goodness we have somebody who's not the traditional masculine man, but is the ultimate effeminate man. Mm-hmm. No. Mm-hmm. That was not it. I mean, it was for Dana Bash, apparently, on CNN. But no, the number one thing being discussed is, my God, if this happens with Donald Trump or with RFK Jr., what are we going to do? That was the number one thing being talked. And how is it going to affect this election if Robert Kennedy Jr. comes out and endorses Trump?
Because I don't expect the RFK Jr., by the way, to be just the, yes, I endorse, and then all of a sudden you don't hear from him again. That sometimes will happen with, if a campaign is done, but they don't really stump. I expect RFK Jr. to still be doing podcasts, and it's not that he's going to be out there, wearing a MAGA hat, but I think he's going to be more active than you would traditionally have in a situation like this. I'll just put it that way. And he'll say, look, these are some of the things I think Trump needs to do. I think that's how he'll approach it. That's what I would expect of him. Just what you heard from his Veep pick.
Yeah, there are things we disagree with him, but we believe we can get him on this, which is why we support it. And when it comes to democracy, this is the point, though, because what these Democrats are saying is that the people that are blocking democracy is not Trump. This is the big thing. This is the message they're sending. Yeah. It's the Democrats that are blocking the democratic process. That really was the main point that stuck out from what she said, and I think you're hearing from other liberal Democrats that the Democratic Party is responsible for this, and everybody knows it's true.
This is not your safety place. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen to the show whenever you choose. All right, Dennis Kucinich on with Neil Cavuto yesterday. Yeah. It's funny because, you remember these candidates from different elections? Yeah. Like when he ran for president back, I believe it was 2004. And you don't see them for a while. Yeah. And this is when I feel old. Because I'm like, oh, Kucinich isn't young anymore. Oh, right. Neither am I.
Well, because in our mind, we remember those images from 20 years ago. Yeah. Yeah.
Because that would have been 20 years ago when I covered the Kucinich.
And also,
I was actually covering it at the Iowa caucuses. Yeah. And I just.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. And also, every time I walk in front of a mirror, I'm like, whoa, who's that old man trying to get in my truck?
And I always think that because it was 2004, and I don't know why I remember it, but it was like Johnny Resnick of the Goo Goo Dolls doing a concert for Dennis Kucinich.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Don't know why I remember that, but I remember I remember that. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. But here he is. Now, he was a part of the campaign, and then he left last fall because he decided to run for Congress in Ohio as an independent. So here's what he had to say yesterday. Here we go.
Important disclaimer here. I left his campaign in October of last year. However, I know full well that the DNC did everything they could to try to block Kennedy from running as a Democrat. They frustrated efforts at ballot access. There were just dozens of ways, Neil, that the DNC tried to exclude him. And they, frankly, of course, they were protecting President Biden, whose campaign headquarters was the same place as the DNC. So let's start with that. Now, where we are right now, it's manifestly clear that the Kennedy campaign is not going to win the presidency. However, it's also clear that should he decide to throw support to one candidate or another, he may make a difference in some battleground states.
Well, if you think about it, look at what Ralph Nader was able to influence in Florida in 2000 to tip it, away from Al Gore at the time, or at least that was the thinking, as you remember, Congressman. And we know how that all worked out. I just wonder, though, it would have to be in battleground states, because nationally it's not going to have a big impact. But looking at the battleground states as you know them, what do you think?
Well, let's look at Michigan. I think we're talking about 15 electoral votes in Michigan. Michigan's going to be close. The Middle East is a campaign issue there. Could Kennedy's support for, let's say, Trump matter and swing a few points in Trump's direction and help Trump take Michigan? It's quite a, it's a possibility. North Carolina, 16 electoral votes. Battleground state, you're looking at a potentially close race there. Could Kennedy's support tip the election towards Trump? Possibly.
There you go. The interesting thing is they're showing poll numbers of the states from July 30th, a YouGov poll, July 30th to August 2nd.
Wow. That was so August 2nd ago.
That's 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the poll that they're showing. I mean, I just you shake your head going, come on, guys, Fox, do a better job.
Why not go back to 2020?
Right. Show a poll in the last week.
Exactly.
And I don't care what the poll says. I just noted, I didn't even pay attention. I just saw when the poll was done.
Right.
I didn't even know whether Trump was ahead or behind in the polling there.
Yeah.
But as I was watching that, because you're listening to the audio, I'm actually watching the video.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, that poll was done August 2nd. It's 3 weeks ago.
You know how much has happened since August 2nd? And there are polls, since then.
And so that's what I see the most from, not any particular issue. I will say this, the RFK supporters that I know are very passionate about him.
Yeah.
They're very passionate. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the one thing that comes out of this, you could see it in Kucinich. Now, he wasn't he's not part of the campaign anymore. But when you saw Shanahan, when you saw what she had to say, the message is going to be clear, because once they decide to do this, as the media reports are on Friday, boy, wow, what way to take the balloon out of the last 2 days of the Democrat convention.
Right, if there is a balloon.
Yeah.
Well, because it's interesting.
There may be, because, again, if you just get that type of publicity and you're talking joy, that can move polls. That does have the ability to move polls. I'm not saying it's going to move the polls next week or the week after, but if you've got Kennedy on Friday coming out and saying, I endorse Trump.
That's a more interesting story for the weekend.
It's a much more interesting story, because the story on Kamala Harris is, she's smiling, but they're not telling you anything.
Now, having said that, we have no idea what the speech is going to be, how well it will be received, or how badly it might go. We don't know.
No, we have no idea.
She might end up being the story that would be far more interesting than RFK Jr.'s announcement. But RFK Jr.'s announcement will still be a big part of the weekend cycle.
Well, that's 4 or 5 points right there. There's 4 or 5 percentage points that are up for grabs. And so when you see, I think the biggest thing that comes out of this, though, is that you have Kennedy and Shanahan saying that Trump is the person. They're going to support him because they didn't try to subvert the democratic process. Only the Democrats did. That's the message. And think of it's not a message from a Republican.
Yeah.
It's a message from Democrats that Trump is the one who will protect democracy, and obviously the Democrats will not. And plus, when it comes, and it's not just because of the election, it's also because of what happened during COVID.
Yeah, right.
And so you've got Kennedy on a lot of the same narrative of Trump that, and if he supports him, we support democracy. And you've got Democrats then now, very well-known Democrats, saying we support Trump because he will protect democracy more than the Democratic Party. And nobody can debate that. You can't debate that the democratic process was followed in the Democratic Party to make her the candidate. She never got one vote.
Right.
She was passed over. I mean, you saw Nancy Pelosi. Well, I wanted to have it, but she was just really smart about it.
Uh-huh.
We wanted to have a primary. We wanted to have a primary. No, you knew you couldn't beat the identity politics of it. You couldn't beat the DEI narrative.
Right.
And you know it.
Right.
And that's why Obama held out. Think about this. Obama was anti-DEI.
He worked against it until he was forced to do the endorsement.
Right.
Again, liberals building the very walls they're running into every day.
But that's a very strong message for a Kennedy to make, or any other Democrat. That's Kucinich is making the same point.
Yeah,
that may not agree with Trump on everything, but when Shanahan said, "I believe he's sincere. He wants the best for this country." The Democrats don't, and they don't because look at the Democrats attempting to subvert democracy at every single point. And the fact is, when you look at what they did with Harris, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody can defend that. You simply shut up and go, well, she's the nominee.
Uh-huh.
And the delegates wanted her, and we don't really care. The votes don't really. You really don't address it because you can't.
Right.
You can't. They can't.
Well, I think
which
now
is why
they just basically now the answer will be, listen, the convention is over and everybody was able to speak through the delegates and blah, 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 blah. They'll just go down that route. Because they don't have an answer. There is no way. And the fact of the matter is, if they do that, and they're kind of doing that now without saying it, then you're dismissing your own voters, your own base. But they allow it. The base is not outraged by this. The rank and file are not outraged by this. We hear nothing. Nothing. So unless there's this silent reaction to it, and it ends up that a number of them don't show up on Election Day for her, we have to believe they're okay with it.
We've said it, yeah. I mean, we've not gotten one, and Democrats are upset. We'll hear from them.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't heard a word, not one person. I'm not, and I'm talking about any Democrat that I know. None of them are speaking, but none of them are saying.
Right.
None that I know are saying this was a fair process for her.
Right.
To get it.
Right.
They may say it in the polls. I can't find one that will say it publicly.
Right. Well,
because the polls show, even though they're uncomfortable with the process, they're still okay with it. We told you the polling yesterday on it. No, it was wrong. They shouldn't have done it that way, but we're okay with it.
Yeah.
What happens if she loses? Does this send the Democratic Party, does this send the DNC and the entire process that when she loses, number one, can you imagine Biden?
Mm-hmm. Well, I believed from the get-go, since the day he dropped out, that if she loses, he'll go on almost a campaign-type tour with the media, not on the road, telling everybody, I would have beat Trump. 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 He's going to be the old man in the robe, walking around the house, or maybe even on the street. And the only thing he's going to be mumbling is, I would have beat Trump. I would have beat Trump. Beat him once, I could have beat him again. That's what he's going to be doing. And as far as the party goes, I don't know, because Gavin Newsom didn't have any stage time. He's not the future. Interesting, the Fox panel yesterday afternoon, they went around, it was the 5, Oh, no, it was Brett Baer. They were asking the panel, okay, who stood out so far this week? And, Shapiro's name came up a couple of times from a couple of the people. I think Britt Hume said it and somebody else. So then, okay, that's one thing from a Britt Hume, but is he the future of the not just who stood out? I should clarify, not just who stood out, but who is the future of the Democratic Party? That's imperative here. And Britt Hume said, well, Shapiro stood out based on their appearance or where they are now. Honestly, I don't. Harold Ford, I think, said AOC. He said, not my style of politics, but she really did a good job. And I was like, nope. But the party, who do the Democrats believe is the future?
Not Newsom. Oh, did you see? You see the results of the job revision?
Mm-hmm.
Zero net growth of jobs in California in 2023.
Yeah.
Zero net job growth.
Right. Well, if she loses, I don't know what they do.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. This may be my favorite audio cut from last night.
Yeah.
There's a few of them, but this was Clinton. All right.
Okay.
Here we go.
Brutal, tough business. I want you to be happy. One of the reasons that President-to-be Harris is doing so well is that we're all so happy.
What the hell is this? I mean, it's just like, come on, stop
What?
it. It's like,
is it legal for former presidents to smoke weed? I guess it is, right?
Apparently.
I don't know.
Apparently, he's inhaling now.
Can you imagine that? Oh, yeah. Hey, liberals, you may not know this. You may be too young. He was not pro-inhale.
Yes.
He was
so people know that,
anti-inhale.
Yes. He smoked it, but he never inhaled.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And I'm sure you're laughing as hard as we did when we first heard.
Was that the beginning of the Democrats where they just, look, Clinton, if he could tell that big whopper, I tried it. I put it in my mouth. I sucked it in, but I didn't inhale.
Right.
It just stayed around my mouth.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara.
The Democrats couldn't shut us out of Chicago thanks to our great affiliate, WLS. Legendary radio station. We were booming into the Democrats' ears every night as they were retiring to the bar.
I can still remember my first night.
Yeah.
That's when for the first time in my life I felt big time.
Drinking tequila for the first time?
No, when I worked at our great affiliate, the first night of working at our great affiliate WLS.
Oh yeah. I mean, was that your first major market, first top 10 market?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. And
because I'd worked in Niagara Falls, Then I worked in Buffalo for a short time.
Yeah.
Then I went to our great affiliate in Rockford, WROK.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah. Also a great station.
I always say hi, everybody, because I just love Rockford.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then to LS. But I was only at LS a short time because then I got hired by the #1 station in Buffalo, which was my goal. My only people say all the I love it when Democrat trolls, you're just working overnights. Well, since my only goal in the business was to work in Buffalo.
Are you saying this is a step up from Buffalo?
Well, it is market. I mean, market size is a national. We do a
well,
national.
Certainly,
it's a national
that.
show. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was just
working
thinking
for Westwood One. No,
this room specifically. Don't answer that question.
No, but but I can still remember the first night, and I forgot what floor of the building we were on. It was like 20, but you look out the window and it's the entire city of Chicago. You're like,
yeah,
oh boy.
Yeah, right.
But it was great. I mean, it was awesome. I remember how much fun.
Nate Bargatze, the comedian, was talking on his podcast recently when he first went to Chicago, when he started as a comedian. That was his first big move, was to Chicago. And he's a kid from Tennessee, and he didn't know how to get around. And they said, look, the lake is to the east. So just go out, go off of that. The lake is to the east. And he says, and he had a bit, one of his first bits ever on stage. And he said he used it for a while because it worked. He said, yeah, but I can't see the lake. So I thought about that. I've been to Chicago a few times. And I thought about that. I thought, as a young person moving to a major city, and what year were you there in WLS?
I was there a very short time, only for like 3 or 4 months. And Buffalo came.
Yeah. What time? What year?
93.
93.
No, beginning of 94.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like January, February, March, April, May.
Yeah.
June.
Yeah.
Of 94, and I was a fill-in. I filled in all over the place.
Right.
One of the best things was actually working this shift there, and being on before Don and Roma.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, that was just
pure
to watch, and
yeah.
then to be able to watch them operate for a little bit. I'd stay over and just watch them, do their thing, and
that's special in so many ways. I can't even imagine. That was such a unique show.
Yeah.
Legendary, but also very unique, even in radio. The great success of that story, of that team and that show, and ultimately their entire story really is very unique, even in radio.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was, and I can't believe we're talking about Don Wade and Roma.
Yeah.
Don died in 2013.
Wow.
Seems like yesterday.
Yeah, yeah.
But they had just a great style, and it helped. It's interesting because when people ask me who my influences are in radio in general, it's a lot of the great radio personalities that I grew up in listening to in Buffalo. In talk radio, it's really interesting because I look at it. 2 of them were Canadian, actually 3 of them. The late John Michael out of Niagara Falls, St. Catharines, who was he was great. He just was a great, because he was different. He was just himself. One of the greatest bits I've ever heard in my life. And you had to be there. I'm driving down the road. I don't even know if I was a talk show host at that time. And he was like, well, we got no phone calls. I think I'll play my harmonica. Now, you would think that somebody playing the harmonica would make you switch the dial.
Right.
Absolutely not. I was riveted.
Wow.
Okay, what's he going to do at the end of this?
What's he doing? No, that's great.
He's playing the harmonica.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll never, ever. And then I got to meet him later on.
Yeah.
And then out of Toronto was another team. Because I think about when I never thought I would ever do team radio in talk. I never did.
Right.
My fear, maybe some of it from ego, but not necessarily, was if I'm on alone, I can totally and completely be myself. You know, it's about me.
Right. Instead of trying to conform to a product in the sum of the team.
I don't have to compromise
Yeah.
to my co-host.
Right.
Is what I thought.
Right.
And that can be the case if you're working with the wrong host. But you
Right.
and I knew from I won't say day one, by week one is when we said it to each
Right.
other.
Yeah.
That's when we said, we may have something here. We knew that the
Right.
chemistry was there. And then if you have the right co-host, it actually brings out more of who you are because you can story tell, with you.
Yeah.
I can story tell
Right.
with you.
Right.
And so the other one out of Canada, out of Toronto, was Paul and Carol Mott that were just wonderful. They did more. I think they did middays or afternoons at a point. They weren't a morning show.
Right.
And also, Don and Roma helped me a lot, with, there.
Yeah.
And so that was, and then I think it's one of the reasons I went back into radio when I was at the steel mill was listening to Larry King.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was real. I can tell you that it was the night that he had on Phyllis Diller. And it was so funny. And I just went, I need to go back into radio. I think I could do that.
Right.
I think I could do that. It sound.
Let's go to Poughkeepsie.
Well, it sounded fun. Well,
Yeah.
when he did Open Phone America,
Right.
that wasn't as much fun because he was
Yeah,
like he really
right,
didn't
yeah.
he really didn't like the he was more grumbly then. But
Right, yeah.
when he was actually interviewing, he was wonderful. One of my influences, I don't know where he is now, and he's liberal. And used to work, was at WCFL in Chicago, was Ed Till. I remember when I got to meet him.
yeah.
I got to meet
Right.
Ed.
Yeah.
But he was liberal, but I loved the style of what he did. And that was early on. I just was in the first maybe 6 months of talk radio when I heard him.
Right.
And not that you try to be anybody, but you just say, wow, they're having fun, or that's really exciting, or they've taken the energy level up. And then, of course, Rush early on, when Rush early was what really early came on, he was a complete breath of fresh air. Even though there was other talk radio out there, more talk radio was more interview. He's the first one that I heard that really came on and was like, boom.
Yeah.
Giving his opinion. But then the way that he would use music, the way that he would use, the music to do stuff and or sound effects.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember just shooting around. I remember when I was still playing basketball, just shooting around the basketball court.
Yeah.
And I'd have Rush on right there. So
Right.
that was,
Right. Yeah.
but it's, I think that in radio, you always have people that you don't copy.
Right.
But they inspire you
Right.
by by how they do a show, and you realize, listening to them, I came to the realization that, because most people don't view it this way, they just view it, you're just a guy on the radio giving your opinion. But when you're in the business and you hear other people doing it, you can actually look at it and say, wow, that could become an art. It's actually an art form when you hear other people do it. I don't think of that as myself because I'm too close to it. I'm just here with you, and we're just doing the thing we do.
I talk about the first day of radio, and my dad picked me up because my car was in the shop, but my first day in September of '84. And my dad, was basically trying to, listen, this could be a good hobby, and he's listening to WBAP, and it's Hal J. and Dick Siegel, and they were a team, and they did both mornings and afternoon drive.
Oh, my ago.
I know. That's crazy to think about how they did that for years. And growing up in Texas, and living in we moved to North Texas. WBAP was a mainstay, and I was so inspired in that moment because my dad said, he had them on the radio. He said, "Look, if these guys are, they're working in Dallas, and they've been doing it for a long time, and they have careers, but if you're thinking about a career, maybe you go, as any dad would do, you can do this, but like your dad, maybe go do some other things, get a day job, basically.
Be an engineer.
Yeah.
That was my father.
And years later, I ended up doing voices for Hal J, and Hal J is a dear friend. I love him dearly. I was able to work with the late, great Dick Siegel when he was on WBAP as a part of that, and it was a surreal experience being a part of something that I had listened to for years. Bill Mack, the host that did the WBAP all-night show starting back in 1969, who has an incredible history in country music as a songwriter, but also as a personality, going back so many years. And in Texas, he was a mainstay. My parents knew who he was long before I did. And so you kind of aspire to, again, as you mentioned, you're not trying to steal anybody's style, but you gain some guidance in how to make. If you're going to do it, you're going to have to make it yourself. You're going to have to do it yourself, and you have to have the respect for those doing it. And I would say beyond that, I mean, Ron Chapman, and also in Texas.
Yeah, I talked about him yesterday.
These are a Kid Craddock back when he was on in the evenings. It was like, man, these guys are crushing it.
Yeah, there was always. I know that for myself, and even this shift, there was always something for me. Night radio when it got dark.
Oh yeah,
there was something that if you're a true radio aficionado, you to be on at night. There's something about the power. I don't know what, I can't explain it.
Yeah,
but when I would listen to the great jocks or the great talk show hosts, and they were on at night, there was just something that I don't know.
It's that
if it's radio romance or whatever.
But it is. It's kind of that because. They have all been great at theater of the mind, but also that conversation that keeps you engaged.
Yeah.
I mean, music is great, but the conversation keeps you engaged, as you mentioned, listening to Larry King and Phil Stiller. I mean,
it was huge.
Just greatness.
But talking about the DNC in Chicago, and that brought up, working at WLS, that was also a huge, just personal thing for me because my father came in one time when I was on WLS.
Yeah.
And he had a steel conference or something downtown.
Right.
And he came up to the studio while I was on the air. And he sat down with me. And that was at the time he was still telling me, you need to be an engineer. You need to be an engineer. Well, we get, the shows, we go in there. They get him a cup of coffee. He sits in for the last 2 hours of the show.
Yeah.
I do the show. And driving home, and my father looks at me and says, you need to stay in this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that I still would have continued doing it. And I always thought that getting my father's approval didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
I was still going to do what I was going to do.
Right.
It meant the world to me.
Yeah.
And still does today. And I always tell him, we all have the conversation now, and my father always jokes, even at 98 years old, and says, aren't you glad I forced you to do talk radio or, or convinced you to do talk radio? We both laugh. And I said, but Dad, you weren't wrong.
Yeah.
Nobody was wrong. You weren't wrong. You were simply saying you have an ability in engineering. You can live a great life doing this, and it's probably more secure.
Right.
But the interesting thing is, since I've been in talk radio, I've had more security in talk radio.
Right.
I mean, I made it way past retirement age, right?
Right.
So I guess I should be happy.
I mean, for radio in general, for me next month, September 4th, will be 40 years. I've been doing it since I was 18. Wow.
I just passed 42.
Yeah. Which means in 10 years.
3 weeks ago.
Yeah. If I stay in it and I'm your age, it'll be 50 years in radio. Wow. I just show up every day.
Yeah,
I want to keep the gig, you know?
You can't look at it. Yeah, you can't look at it that way. You can't look at it. God, 40 years.
Yeah.
How the hell did I get that?
Exactly. I just love it. I love it more every day.
40 years. What the hell have I been doing with my life?
Exactly.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Drivers must always be prepared for a roadside inspection. This means drivers should always have their personal, vehicle, and company credentials organized and ready, and having any shipment paperwork such as bills of lading or hazardous materials shipment emergency response information organized and ready for the inspection official. Just an FYI, the top 2 violations written against drivers every year, as well as during Operation Road Check, are log general form and manner and log not current. Both are completely avoidable if the driver keeps the log accurate, compliant, and current at all times. Having the vehicle ready for inspection involves the driver conducting daily inspections and making sure any problems that are discovered are immediately corrected. Vehicle readiness also requires the company to make sure that the vehicle is current on all scheduled maintenance and that the maintenance schedule is adequate. This will make sure the driver is being given a sound vehicle to start with. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Coming up following the bottom of the hour, some great pieces written about the Democratic National Convention in National Review. We'll get to that. And just some of the weird things. I mean, it's Walz, for example, and he's been doing it now consistently in his speeches, and the exact same wording of it. And so this has been workshopped, and I would love to see, because I think everything they're doing is some type of focus group, because they're repeating the exact same thing with the exact same words.
Right.
But this thing of attacking J.D. Vance for coming from nothing and going to Yale as if it's an insult, I don't know where that's coming from.
I really don't, especially for liberals.
Yeah. It's just...
Yeah. It really is bizarre.
That he's part of that he used to be poor and in poverty, and now he's the out-of-touch elite because he went to Yale.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I'm sorry, I'm just laughing at some of the writing that I'm reading here from National Review. Jeffrey, is it Blahar or Blair from? I always get his name mixed up.
I've heard Blair.
Blair? Okay.
Assuming that's correct.
He's amid an increasingly incoherent Democratic convention, Donald Trump, of all people, provides a dose of sanity. But that's not what even... It's how he looks at this.
Yeah.
He says, given the political incoherence on display all last night, he's looking at day 2, not day 3. In the sequence of speakers of the convention, proof of a party so riven underneath the surface with factional disagreements that their best bet is to hire a DJ for roll call and throw a dance party instead, in the hopes that everyone will forget their differences while the groove still plays. The clash was obvious enough to anyone with enough political history under the belts to remember. Professional former Republican strategist and vehement anti-communist immigrant Ana Navarro castigated Donald Trump for selling out to dictators and behaving like a Marxist tyrant. She was followed immediately thereupon by Vermont Senator and vehement pro-communist Bernie Sanders, who honeymooned in Moscow, much as Tim Walz similarly did in Tiananmen Square. Once Sanders got done with his angry socialist power to the people, we hate billionaires routine, though his thick New York City accent, he sounded like he was commanding Democrats to take on both Big Pharma and Big Egg. He then passed the ball off to none other than billionaire heir to the Pritzker fortune.
Yeah.
The improbable doughy governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker. Pritzker then proceeded to happily boast about how many billions of dollars he's actually worth to insult Trump. So you had an anti-communist, who accused Trump of trying to make it seem like he's sympathetic towards communists.
Right.
And then right after her, they brought on a communist who was bashing billionaires. Then they bring on a billionaire who says, and we talked about this yesterday about Pritzker, about boasting how many billions of dollars he's actually worth to insult Trump, that he's a better. And we came up with the whole concept yesterday. Democrats now love billionaires as long as they're Democrat billionaires.
Yeah.
He goes, none of these people apparently check their speeches against one another, which is both hilarious and indicative of the massive rifts being papered over during this convention. Michelle and Barack Obama both gave decent to good speeches to end the night. Michelle was the latter, but they were purely rhetorical pitches designed to evoke memories of how much the audience and the viewers at home loved the Obamas compared to this weak crop of choices. Other than promises to keep pushing forward to where, there was no real discussion of what the Harris administration would offer, merely that it would prevent us as a nation from going back. If they keep at this, I suspect, regardless of what winds the Democrats feel blowing in their sails right now, we will in fact be going back. To Trump, that is. Wow. Wow. It goes, I would like to conclude by directing your attention as a reader to something seemingly unrelated but actually quite relevant. In a moment where Kamala Harris and Tim Walz refuse to speak to the media in any way at all, and Donald Trump speaks to them too much, please, not another 90-minute presser, Don. Trump did the unexpected. He sat down for an hour-long interview with stand-up comedian and podcaster Theo Vaughn. We played parts of it on the show the other day. And at several moments demonstrated surprisingly candid and even moving insight into his own character in a way that voters will rarely ever see. It would be too easy to describe Vaughn as a Joe Rogan type, but it's handy enough for our purposes. He's a comedian with a politically curious mind, a lack of partisan attachment, and an knack for interviewing. His show usually focuses on people from the world of comedy, but recently he's featured a rabbi from Harvard and Bernie Sanders, among others. Trump's interview was something of a coup for both of them, not just as a get for Vaughn, but as a moment when, maybe because Trump never gets a chance to talk to someone like him at the New York Times or CNN, found a completely different mode to his personality and actually opened up a bit about how his own family's troubles shaped who he was. You see, Vaughn is a recovering drug and alcohol addict. The combo is a killer, and he had absolutely no concern at all hitting Trump early on with the question that personally fascinated him, why Trump was a lifelong teetotaler. Trump answered because watching his older brother, Fred, who he loved and admired, lose an early acquired and lifelong battle to alcohol. Wow. Fred's advice to younger brother Don, don't screw up like I did, don't drink. He took it to heart. We said yesterday, because he's got a pretty big podcast, that, this is where Trump's going as digital as often as possible, which is a good thing. And he's actually done some really good interviews where he just sits down, and it's not that there aren't probing questions, but they're not asking demonization questions.
Well,
why did you kill your mother?
Well, right. Well, exactly. One thing, being a Theo Von fan, and I don't know how many episodes I've watched of this past weekend. That's the name of his podcast on YouTube. But and it's hard to know, because the way he approaches his comedy, if you're a comedian, you're thinking he puts so much brain power into what he's writing and how he delivers it, right? But you don't actually know, is that just the way Theo's mind works? Because he kind of comes off as maybe a simpleton, but he puts things in a genius way. It's very unique for his comedy. On his podcast, I don't think there's a way to predict what he's going to ask because of that. It is unpredictable. I have no idea what the Trump campaign did, if they just looked at the demographics and the numbers of his podcast and the reach on it, or if they actually researched Theo Von's approach to interviewing. But it's you, when you're listening to it, and he did, in fact, comedian John Mulaney. That's how I learned, before I watched John's latest special. I had no idea Mulaney was a recovering drug addict. I saw it on Theo Von's podcast. And it was like watching a therapy session between the two, because of Theo Von's past addictions and everything else. And it really was. And it was like, wow. And I don't know if they looked at that. I don't know if that was planned by the campaign, how much planning they put into that. But it's one of the podcasts that you definitely want to do for that reason. Because, number one, Trump isn't afraid to answer questions, but someone like Theo Von's going to break it down and ask the questions in a way that connects with people on a different level, and will hopefully render an answer that brings out something maybe you didn't know about Trump, or a different aspect of Trump that you don't see, or whoever the person being interviewed is.
The other article was Noah Rothman's column, Barack Obama's one neat rhetorical trick is still all he's got. He writes here, I'm just going to read a couple of paragraphs. From this launch pad, Obama rocketed into the stratosphere, an Olympian vantage from which he surveys the political landscape and heaps scorn upon its most malign elements. Quote, this is from Obama 2 nights ago, our politics have become so polarized these days that all of us across the political spectrum seem so quick to assume the worst in others unless they agree with us at every issue. We start thinking that the only way to win is to scold and to shame and out-yell the other side, and after a while, regular folks just tune out or they don't bother to vote. Obama's celestial remove from our politics cast him as the omniscient narrator in our national story. Having ascended to the astral plane, the former president can identify the character flaws in his opponents, and he accentuates them by warning his allies to avoid their unhappy fates. It is they who thrive on division, but that won't work for us. It's we who must listen to their concerns and maybe learn something in the process. Our fellow citizens deserve the same grace we hope they'll extend to us, Obama remarked. That's how we can build a true Democratic majority, one that can get things done. It's savvy stuff on a superficial level. Obama is merely advocating friendliness and getting along, and he's doing so in his professional way with all the apparent condescension for his own supporters, where he says, you have to listen too.
Right.
And then he goes on to just tear into Trump on a personal level, and everything that he just said that is wrong, he does in the speech, but he gets away with it because he puts himself on a higher plane that I'm an outsider just observing all of this. This is all of you people and what you're doing.
Right.
So in a way, he actually chastises both sides in order then to pound on his opponent when he proclaims that we need to be friendlier, we need to be more civil, we need to listen to the other side. Mm-hmm. Then he launches into all these personal attacks on Trump from the position that I'm just observing and I'm above it all, which really reminds me of Bernard Goldberg in the book Bias, when he talked about the mainstream media and all these TV anchors like Dan Rather. They don't believe they're liberal. They don't believe they're Democrat. They don't believe they're Republican. They don't believe they're conservative. They believe they're above it all.
Yeah, right.
They believe they are so arrogant, they believe they're above it all, and they're the ones who can tell you to act properly and then go off and do exactly what they told you not to do, but they can get away with it because they're above you.
Yes. They have a noble role in it all.
It's a great article to read, Nora Rothman in National Review, but it is true. And they said Obama's always done that. He goes, the problem is it only works as a candidate. It really doesn't work when you're president. People don't buy into it. You cannot set yourself apart from what you are, which is what they're trying to do right now with Harris.
Right.
But it's very tough to set yourself apart of the government that you control.
Right.
But interesting way of analyzing the rhetoric of an Obama. But still, I listen to him, I go, God, is he BS? I've always viewed him as the biggest BSer in the world.
It really is. I mean, he's totally Hollywood.
Yeah. There's no substance to the guy.
No.
Never has been.
No. It's like he's playing a role in a movie.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yep. 866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. This was a bizarre moment last night.
All right.
Apparently, nobody from the DNC. Again, they're not even checking their platform,
right?
Because they kept the Biden name in the platform as if it was the Biden campaign's platform.
Right.
They're not checking speeches either. We talked about the different speakers there and how the speakers. You had an anti-communist followed by a communist, followed by a billionaire insulting another billionaire and talking about billionaires are bad except his kind of billionaire.
Right.
I mean, it's just bizarre. But here's Clinton last night. Listen to this. Here we go.
And then he did something that's really hard for a politician to do. He voluntarily gave up political power. And
right.
Everyone knows.
Right.
Everyone. Now that's Clinton's attempt at gaslighting.
Yeah. Yeah. And clearly the talking points as handed to him by the Democrats. Hey, we got to keep this whole thing that, Biden
I wouldn't have
voluntarily.
That's why I'm saying they didn't. I wouldn't have allowed that in there. I just ignore that. Don't say that because everybody knows he was forced out.
In other words, let Joe say it, but nobody else gets to say it.
Yes.
Yeah. No, good point.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.